When I look at the United States of America, I see a country that is driving down a road of nails with no spare tires. And what I mean by that is when these markets correct, when this economy corrects, there are no spare tires. We are out of options. And we are getting very close to that point right now. And watching the masses and the sheeple here in America over Black Friday, I lose even more faith in the American people because the masses are absolutely delusional. Now, I must say that from what I was seeing on the news, Black Friday looked very mild compared to previous years. A lot less fights. I didn't see a lot of people being trampled. I didn't see a lot of fist fights. I didn't see a lot of shootings. Now, there was some of that, but there was a lot less than the previous years. They're marking, they were marking, products down 80+%, massive mail-in rebates, doing everything they could to get people into these stores. Yet when I was out on Friday just running some errands, there was really not a lot of traffic. And if you would, please comment down below. I would love to know what was happening in your areas. Were your malls packed? Were your shopping centers packed? What were the retail stores like in your area? I would love to know the answer. I can tell you, I didn't go to any malls. I didn't go to any stores, so I could not tell you. But I can tell you from just driving around, there was not a lot of traffic on the road. Now, I did hear that outside of my area, at one of the outlets, it was extremely busy. But from what I saw in the news, a lot of the malls and shopping centers were very quiet compared to years prior. So let me know what was happening in your area. Remember, they threw everything in the kitchen sink to get people to come out to these retail brick and mortar stores. Now, I know that the numbers were up when we look at internet sales. It'll be curious to see what brick and mortar did, what the internet did. So I'm sure we'll get those numbers shortly. But noticeably, from what I saw in the news, a lot less fights, a lot less people waiting in line. And again, I didn't see people being trampled and breaking doors and shattering glass like we used to see. So there is a change going on, but we still have millions of people spending money they don't have. And when I see this continuation of borrowing money to buy more Chinese products, it really makes you lose faith in the people of America. The masses have been so dumbed down. They act so irresponsibly. And a lot of people wonder why they are living paycheck to paycheck, why they don't have an emergency fund, why they don't have $400 saved up. And it's because of behavior like this. And granted, there are people that work hard, try to save what they can, and they're barely getting by, and I get that, and my heart goes out to those people. But these people who continually create and acquire more debt to buy more garbage with money they don't have, these people are going to get exactly what they deserve. And when this correction takes place here in America, these people are going to get wiped out. And I'm making this quick video on this beautiful Saturday evening to just reinforce with you, you do not want to follow the masses here. You do not want to follow the herd, because they are going to lose. This is no time to gamble. This is not time to be buying stuff you don't need. This is, if you can drive the car you have right now, it might be 5 or 10 years old, or maybe even older, and it's working just fine, getting you from point A to point B. Do you really need to go out and drop $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 on a new car right now? I would not do that. This is the time to be keeping the powder dry. 2020 is going to, in my opinion, be a reckless year, and a year that I would be preparing for in many different ways. I want to switch gears here really quick and go over an article that I came across about a day or two ago, and many of you may have already seen this on the news. I came across it on Newsweek. Walmart pork found to have super bug, bacteria resistant to antibiotics. Now they found this in the eastern U.S. Walmart stores. 80% of the bacteria which they tested was resistant to at least one antibiotic. 27% of the bacteria was resistant to 3 or more classes of antibiotics, and 10% of this bacteria was resistant to all 6 classes of antibiotics. Now, Walmart, well, I will never go and shop at a Walmart, as you know. Once they turned their back with their ammo sales, I no longer was a customer nor client of Walmart, and they will never get my money again. And this is another reminder to every one of you to be smart with your money. This is a store, okay, that is based solely on China, the communist regime, now selling you not just Chinese garbage, they're selling you infected pork, okay, with a superbug. Could you imagine if one of your kids got this, or if you got this? 10% of it resistant to all 6 classes of antibiotics, very dangerous, and 27% of it resistant to 3 or more classes of antibiotics. I mean, just scary stuff. Should we really be spending our hard-earned money at a store like Walmart that is basically sold out to the Chinese communist regime, a store that is no longer going to sell you ammunition, and now a store that is selling you infected pork? Be smart with your money. I will never shop at Walmart, and you shouldn't be shopping at Walmart. And I know some of you will write into me and tell me that you have to. It's the only store in town. I get it. If you have an option to go to another store, take your hard-earned money and go to another store, because Walmart does not deserve your money. So let's switch back a couple gears where we started regarding the U.S. consumer. You know, the U.S. consumer that we're told is strong, but yet the U.S. consumer whose standard of living continues to depreciate, the consumer whose paycheck is not keeping up with that 8 to 10% of real inflation that is occurring here in the United States of America. Even though the U.S. government tells us that inflation is under 2%, the real inflation is 8 to 10% a year. All you have to do is look at your rent, look at the price of a car, a mortgage, healthcare, tuition, childcare, the grocery store. Go look at a pound of beef, a pound of hamburger, a pound of pork. Go look at vegetables, and then go back in a month or two and look at those same products, and I promise you, most of them will have already gone up just within weeks. So next year is going to be more expensive to live than it is this year. And that's just what is reality. That's what's really occurring here in the United States of America. And I know people don't like me talking about reality, but we're just talking economics here, just plain out old economics. And you don't have to be a brain surgeon to do the math. Things are going to cost more next year than they do this year, because things this year cost more than they do last year. Your dollar is buying less, you're getting less product, and you're getting less quality. And that is just a fact. When I see the so-called strong consumer, 50% of U.S. workers making less than $33,000 a year, 7 million people delinquent on auto loans, 40% of Americans don't even have $400 saved up, and I think 60% of Americans don't have $1,000 saved up. So when you start doing the math, and again, you don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure this out, something's not adding up here. I came across this article today. It's titled "Corporate Debt Nears a Record $10 Trillion and Borrowing Binge Possesses New Risk." What you really have to ask yourself here is, what is going to happen when these markets correct, when this economy corrects? What is going to happen to these corporations who took on all this massive debt because of low interest rates? They borrowed all this money because of low rates, and now they're drowning in debt. What happens when these markets correct? What is going to happen is you're going to see a chaotic economic tsunami take place, and these companies are going to get wiped out, and the people invested in these companies are going to get wiped out. The article goes on to say AT&T, Ford, CVS Health, and many more have splurged on borrowed cash. And again, these are just a few of the companies. Companies are using debt for financial risk taking, such as investor payouts and Wall Street deal making. They're not building new plants, they're not buying new equipment, they're not putting it into the company. They're just using the money to make deals and to pay out investors. Since October 1st, Hasbro, Nordstrom, Marriott, Hyundai, all tapped investors for cash by selling near junk bonds that S&P labels BBB. All of this will contribute to making the coming recession much worse. We are sitting on a unexploded bomb, and we don't know what will trigger the explosion. But you can bet when this bomb gets triggered, this explosion is going to be massive. And it won't just be one explosion, it's going to be a multitude of explosions. We are starting to see the side effects of low rates that stay too low for too long. Remember, for a decade, we were at near zero, and here we are today in 2019, going into 2020, and we're still near zero, and we're heading to zero. More than likely, we are going to be at zero or very close to zero in the year 2020. Rather than reducing risky debts, companies are adding to them. We are creating massive debt bombs here. These companies are continuing to borrow money. We're seeing a corporate depression taking place, massive amounts of debt. It can never be paid back. And when these markets turn, when they correct, these corporations, these companies are in massive trouble, and the people invested in these companies are going to be in massive trouble. The whole financial institution is going to be in massive trouble. With the Fed rate cuts, companies continue to tap investors for enormous sums of money. In September, U.S. corporations issued $220 billion in new bonds, the largest single monthly figure in more than 2 years. Lured by low rates, companies have splurged on debt to repurchase their own shares, pay higher dividends to investors, and fund acquisitions. Corporations have spent more than $3 trillion over the past 5 years buying back their own stock, according to S&P. So when people go, well, the stock market's doing so well, everything's so good. Take a look why it's doing so well. In the last 5 years, $3 trillion of that money that was invested in these companies what was money that these companies borrowed to buy their own stock. Figure it out. The whole thing is a scam. It's rigged, manipulated. This whole thing is a Ponzi scheme, and this house of cards is coming down, and when it does, it's going to come down hard. Earlier this month, Hasbro issued $2.4 billion worth of bonds with interest rates as low as 2.6% to help fund its acquisition of a London-based entertainment company. Since 2009, Hasbro has increased its total debt by almost 60%. And, I'm not a financial advisor, but my way of living, my way of thinking is to have the least amount of debt as possible. I've shared with you that you don't want to be going in, because I did go through the 2008 collapse, okay? And I saw what happened to a lot of people. It affected everybody, including myself. And I know the one thing you don't want to be going into a financial collapse with is debt. And so what you want to be going into a collapse with is assets and cash, because there are massive buying opportunities during these times. The people who have debt, the people who are broke, you're not going to be able to take advantage of it. And in fact, a collapse is going to make your life that much worse, because it's going to be hard to survive when you're broke. This is when people lose cars, they lose land, they lose businesses, they lose homes, they lose their investments. And if you don't have something to fall back on, like cash and assets, you're going to be in big trouble. If the only thing you have is debt going into this economic turn, you're going to be in big big trouble. Just as these corporations and these companies are going to be heading into the biggest economic collapse the world has seen, they're going to be going in with the highest corporate debt that the U.S. has ever seen in history. What do you think is going to happen? Again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. Whether you're an individual or a corporation going in to an economic collapse with massive amounts of debt, you are not going to come out alive. Okay, the ones that survive are the ones that are running lean, who have a reserve, who have an emergency fund, who have assets, who have cash, and who have their bills paid for, okay, who don't have a lot of debt. That's how you survive. This is going to be the biggest wealth transfer the world has seen. There are two things that are very concerning heading into 2020. One is wealth inequality, the gap between the rich and the poor. The other is opportunity inequality, where a handful of people have all the opportunity while the majority or the masses don't have the same opportunity. These two things, heading into an economic downturn, an economic collapse, depression, these two things can cause very dangerous times in America. This can cause very serious eruptions in America because Americans are going to wake up at some point and they're getting sick and tired of all the opportunity only being given to a few people. They're getting sick and tired of the 1% getting the bailouts, getting the free, cheap money, getting all the help, getting the cash, while the average American is struggling. And as we continue to get closer and closer to an economic turn, those two things, wealth inequality and opportunity inequality, are going to be two things that can really be dangerous here in an economic downturn. So I'm going to wrap it up right there really quick. Make sure that you are topping off all of your preps: food, water, precious metals, gear, security. The number one prep, and I don't care what anybody out there says, the number one prep next to walking close to God, the number one prep is going to be security. And the reason being is if you cannot protect your food, if you cannot protect your water, if you cannot protect your family, your gold, your silver, your property, somebody will just come and they will take it, okay? Yes, they will take your family, they will take your silver, they will take your gold, they'll take your food, they'll take your damn dog. If you cannot protect it, somebody out there will come and take it. That's what happens in really bad times. If we just look historically at what happens throughout the world in economic collapses, people get violent. They get absolutely insane, crazy, deviant. You don't want to be that guy who has a lot to lose and unable to protect it. So make sure security is your number one asset. And right now, while most assets are overvalued, bonds, stocks, real estate, etc., the two most undervalued assets and the two most important assets on planet Earth are on a blue light sale. It's gold and silver. You shouldn't be out, in my humble opinion, buying overvalued assets like real estate and stocks. Right now, the two things that are on sale are gold and silver. And two of the most important things to have during a collapse, ask the people in Venezuela what an ounce of silver buys them right now. If you have an ounce of silver in Venezuela, you're eating. If you have paper in Venezuela, you're starving. During a collapse, and even more importantly, coming out of a collapse, you are holding real money. We are going to see the biggest wealth transfer in the world. You should be preparing for it right now, putting cash away, and especially gold and silver, because when the dust settles and we come out of a collapse, the people who are holding real money are going to win. God bless every one of you. Have a phenomenal weekend. And again, I want to thank everybody for sending the cards, the donations, and a shout out to Locke from Midway City, California. He wanted me to give him a shout out. So Locke, Midway City, California, I'm giving you a shout out. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and I hope everybody out there had a great Thanksgiving. We live in the greatest country in the world, and we have so much to be thankful for. I hope every one of you is thanking God tonight for the ability that he gave you to prepare, the awakening he gave every one of us to prepare, and the opportunity that we still have here in America to save this country and to continue to make it a better country and to save it. God bless America, and God bless every one of you.